Hello, hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Oh, another Wicked Wednesday, another show to do.
You got it.
So how's everything going with you, Gwen?
It's good. I love Wicked Wednesdays because I have you, and then of course Jeremy at 9:30 Eastern.
Oh,
And
Jeremy's doing so good.
he is. I'm so
He's
proud.
doing so good. I love the fact that he took the initiative, to have his own theme. He does his own thing. Like he's doing excellent. And me and him, we talk before every time I come on a show. We talk for at least 20 minutes or so.
I love it.
And such a great dude. I know he's got a great guest lined up tonight, which we're hit on at the end of the show. But I am definitely super stoked for the guest that we have tonight.
So
I will tell you that if it wasn't for Morgan, I probably never would have landed this guest. And I say that specifically because Morgan, the hell was that? I don't know if y'all saw that or not.
I saw something. I don't know what that was.
Like a big ass bug is what it was. Oh, hang on. I'll be right. It's another damn. It's a stink bug.
Oh no, don't you smash it, mister.
Oh no, it's going in my brother's room. No, this is the fourth one that I've taken out in the last 2 days.
The weather, guys. The weather.
I don't know where they keep coming from.
Our guest is going to think we're absolutely nuts, but it's okay.
But look, I am, so it's okay. I'm certified. But you know what? At least I wasn't seeing shit. I saw something fly in front of my face, and I didn't know what it was. But no. So tonight we have an amazing guest. Let me tell you, if I could list the amount of stuff that this woman does, like we could sit here for the next half an hour just going over her credentials, to be honest.
Exactly.
She's a member of SAG-AFTRA. She's an actress. She's a playwright. She's a award-winning with 4 Prism Awards and a best-selling author. So not just that, but she knows her history too, because she is also a licensed New York City tour guide. So let me tell you, I am super stoked for this conversation, and I thank Morgan for setting this up as far as introducing me at the Paracon, the Salem Con.
Mm-hmm.
And so without further ado, though, let's welcome to the Paranormal Unveiled family, Miss Leanna Renee Hieber.
Hi, friends. I'm so glad to join you. Thank you so much.
Leanna, how are you tonight?
I am great. I am joining you from beautiful rural Ohio, where I grew up. So I'm a New Yorker now, but I grew up in rural Ohio in the middle of nowhere, which gave me a lot of chance to make up ghost stories. So
I like it.
Yeah, it's what I do started very early in my life.
Well, you can't answer my first question before I ask it, okay? But
I'm
no,
psychic. I'm a little psychic.
There you go.
No, so being from Ohio, I have to respect that because I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So
Well, there you go. Who dey?
And I also love the Cincinnati Reds. So I mean, I can't hate on that.
They're great.
So let me ask you, obviously, as you just said, growing up in rural Ohio, you had a lot of time to kind of sit here and formulate ghost stories and such. In living in that rural area, have you ever had an experience that kind of sparked you into this, or is this an interest that has always been there?
Well, my first sort of ghost story was actually really personal. My great-grandmother visited me when she passed. We didn't know she had passed, but there was a very strange experience that I had when I was about 6 years old, and I was really sick. I had about 105-degree fever, and that's not good when you're 6 years old. That could be deadly at that age. And my mom's a nurse. She's an RN, and she knew that was really bad. My dad had gone up to be with my great-grandmother, the woman I am named for, as she was passing. I couldn't go because I was sick. And so I was in a bad way. But then suddenly I went into what my mom described as sort of a rhapsodic ode, talking about God and the angels, using words that I had never been taught, big liturgical, spiritual, ecclesiastical words, like big. My vocabulary was good, but there was some stuff in there that was like, I don't think that is beyond her scope at this point. And it didn't even seem really completely like me. Like I was channeling something. And my fever broke in that moment. And then we got a phone call that my great-grandmother had just passed.
So you kind of had like a familial visitation, is what they would call it.
I did, and I think she helped break my fever. I mean, I think I was just, especially since I was named for her. I was particularly beloved, and I felt very held, and I've always felt held by her. I've always felt protected by her. So I really have felt like my first sort of ghost story was also a guardian angel story, and I've carried that with me through my whole life, which is kind of why, as a kid, I was never really like scared of ghosts necessarily. I was like, well, that's somebody's loved one. And if it's something negative, it's something that wants to hurt me, well, I have faith and I'm just going to use that as a shield. So in that case, for me, ghost stories were more like, okay, well, the people I'm not so worried about in terms of the spirits, they're probably just checking in on me. Sometimes it's the living you got to worry about.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Also, since we didn't tell you in the pre-show, if you see Gwen waving and me kind of do my little salute thing, we see people saying hi in the chat. We're not going to interrupt you while you're talking. So,
well, I will wait. I love that. I wave too.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So, going off of that, I apologize for the stink bug incident at the beginning. I don't know where they keep coming from. They are rampant right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a weather thing too, because they're all over Ohio here too right now. So
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was sitting there watching, matter of fact, a crappy episode of Ghost Adventures the other day, and I'm looking up, I'm like, what is that? Was that in the original episode? And no, it's a stink bug crawling across the screen of my TV. I'm like,
Just keeping you on your toes.
There you go.
Right. So first and foremost, though, Leanna, thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with us for the next hour or so. I greatly appreciate it. I respect your work. I think that, and also listening to you talk in the first opening segment that when you came on, you remind me of almost how Michael Roser talks.
Yes.
Like the words you use and the way you eloquently put it.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Michael was one of my favorite guests. So let me tell you,
he's very. I call him the professor.
Yeah,
he laughs at me. I do.
I think it was him and Ron Iacovetti were the only two people I ever told don't use words on my show that I can't spell.
Sorry to drop ecclesiastical on you right out the gate, right?
I love it.
That one I could probably spell if you give me like 5 minutes.
Give me a second. See, that's the thing. I can use a lot of really big words, but I have to do that thing where you like sound it out in your head. Mm-hmm. Anytime I have to write it out, it's not nearly as quick as when I say it.
I like it. So I kind of have that weird thing too. But anyways, we're getting off track. Pig trail here. So first question I've got for you. I know that you have a BFA from the Miami University in Ohio.
Yeah.
So when I first read your bio, I thought you went to Miami University down in Florida. And I'm like, man, that's a weird transition. Ohio to Florida to New York. Like, where is this woman traveling to?
So Florida is University of Miami. Miami University is in Oxford, Ohio. And Miami was a university before Florida was a state. Miami University was founded in 1809.
That is wild. Mm-hmm. That is wild. So yeah. Do you think the state of Florida stole their name from the university?
I think they stole it from the Miami people, the Native Americans of the land.
Oh, good point. Mm-hmm. Russ, I see. So with that being said, you had a BFA in what, theatrical arts?
Yes. So I went to school for theater because that's what I had done publicly ever since I was young. I sort of did lots of theater growing up and I wrote all the time, but I wrote privately. I wrote for me. I wrote because I wanted to do that. That was like my secret little escape. And I did professional theater. I bounced around the regional theater circuit. I joined the union for stage actors. It's called Actors Equity. And that's how I also then joined the SAG-AFTRA, which is the Screen Actors Guild, and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. It's all one union.
The last part is what I didn't know what it meant. Okay.
Yes. So SAG-AFTRA, so SAG is the Screen Actors Guild, and they merged with the other television union, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. So that's what SAG-AFTRA means. And so when the actor awards come on, and that's in one of the big award ceremonies that happens for film and television through the year, that we get to vote on that as voting members of our union. So I've been a professional actor for a very long time, and I've done film and television. I've done lots of stage work, but I was at a Broadway callback. When I finally moved to New York, I knew that like my trajectory was going to be New York. I always knew that growing up, I was going to end up in New York. And I was at a Broadway callback and all I could think about was my book. the book that would become my debut novel back in 2009. And I knew that if I was at a Broadway callback and I was thinking about this other thing, when everyone else there was real focused on that Broadway callback, and suddenly I realized my heart was somewhere else. So that was very telling to me. So it's not that I stopped theater entirely. I still kept it in my life, but I just stopped that kind of all roads lead to Broadway idea. And now I just started to do more passion projects that were a little bit smaller scale that would allow me to keep my books at the forefront. And I don't regret that decision at all, especially now that I'm trying to get to do a little bit more theater in my life. And I'll talk a little bit more about a project that I'm doing that relates to our entire discussion here, where I'm trying to kind of merge the idea of telling ghost stories with some theatricality too. So I feel like a life in the arts for me is just a matter of following my passion and my calling. And my calling really has been just to be a storyteller, and particularly with an eye for historical figures and strong women.
I love it. I love it. So also in your bio, it said that you had a very firm interest in the Victorian era.
Yeah.
So whenever people see you at Paracons or conventions or events, you are almost always dressed up in like a either black, and I'm not sure, pretty much black is what I've seen you in, but I'm pretty sure you have other colors.
No, I'm goth. I'm goth.
I like
so you
it.
will only see me in black.
But it's almost always Victorian style garb.
Yeah, if it's another color, it's because I'm getting paid to wear it as a costume. If it's in color, it's a costume from somebody else paid. So there's pictures of me in colored outfits on, and various other things. That's either Halloween, where I'm dressed up as somebody else for Halloween, because I'm not going to be, Halloween every other day of the week.
Right.
So on Halloween, I need to change it up and sometimes wear white, like when I did Galadriel or when I did Edith Cushing from Crimson Peak. So I'll sometimes cosplay in or do a costume in something else that's not black. But if it's me, I'm goth. And so people ask me, is this a costume thing for you? And I'm like, no, this is just how I dress. I dress like a Victorian widow. If you like my clothes, you'll like my books. I dress like I write. Almost all of my books are set in the late 19th century, and they're all focusing on spiritualists and people talking with the dead and all kinds of paranormal stuff. So goth and Gothic novelist, it goes together pretty well.
Yeah, because that was, I will say that was, I think I had first seen you at the first Salem Paracon that I had ever attended. And I didn't get a chance. I think I might have gotten a chance to stop and say hi very quickly, but it was very brief.
Right.
And I remember the main thing I remembered was the outfit.
Yeah.
And I'm like that, that outfit is amazing. And then I see you at the Salem Paracon last year, and I'm like, okay, so this is a normal thing for her. It kind of clicked in my head. And then when I went to your Facebook, I was trying to find a few extra photos for my promo video. I'm like, this is just how she dresses.
This is how I roll. It really is my comfort zone. So people ask me, what is it about the 19th century? What is it about that calls to you? And for me, it really feels like it's unfinished business. I believe strongly in past lives. Absolutely. Absolutely. I came into this world with a lot of memories that didn't make sense. And a real I would see something 19th century and it would be very familiar to me. If I saw a Victorian house on the TV, I would walk towards the TV and pet the television. Even when I was pre-verbal, there was stuff that I was cluing in on that was very 19th century coded. When I started to read, I was reading the 19th century classics. So one of the first things I remember reading cover to cover was Edgar Allan Poe's collected works. And that made an enormous impact on me. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. That's my whole personality.
Edgar Allan Poe was such a good writer.
And it's still I fell in love with his works as a kid, and he's one of those rare 19th century writers that's accessible to young readers and still stays accessible. He was a real student of the world, and he was very insightful. And there's also a lot of moments I was rereading some pieces and I was like, wow, this is actually really funny too. He had a lot of humor in some of his other pieces that aren't as well known. And he was also writing satire and things like that. And I just thought, wow, what a cool guy who was able to do so many different range and really explore different voices in his work. He gets known so much for horror, but I also think he was really insightful as a social critic too. Yeah,
because that's what I know him for. Of course, everyone knows him for The Raven.
Yeah.
But I remember the Cask of Amontillado. I remember the Mask of the Red Death. Those are the ones that I remember. but his range of writing is just so out there and unique that you cannot help but appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that was a huge formative influence for me. So following that, like, he was sort of my North Star. So growing up with that as your favorite writer, you know, everything was very sort of Gothic tinged from that point on. And I just wanted to kind of invest in this 19th century as a way to kind of learn about this era that I feel my soul felt like there was something else to be said and done, which is why I started gravitating towards powerful women at a time when women didn't have any rights, but there were still women of the 19th century, and I write about them, who were trying to be reformers and who were trying to work towards our modern era. And there's a lot about the 19th century that we are finding parallels to now, and women's rights are not something we can take for granted because they're currently trying to be eroded. So it's something that the 19th century is very palpable right now for all of us still. And in some ways, I can write about what's happening right now in a way that gives us a moment of pause to think about it, because there's a little bit of distance when you're writing about the past. But with the parallels to the future, it's a reminder to make sure we don't take our rights for granted.
Correct. I agree with that 100%. So being an author, and you know, if anyone watched the video or has read your bio anywhere, you have won 4 Prism Awards for literary. So were those for your, I guess you could say, fantasy romance novels? Or...
Correct. Yes.
So
it's a genre award. So the Prism Awards are awarded to folks who are blending genres. So in fantasy and romance, so it's those two genres blended together. There's a trendy new word in like the book talk and the bookstagram community called romantasy, where you're blending romance and fantasy.
Yes.
Before that, we would just call it fantasy romance. That was the industry term back in the early 2000s. So when I won my Prism Awards, I won them for excellence in fantasy romance. So I was blending two genres, and in my Strangely Beautiful saga, which was my debut set of books, several of the books in that series won Prism Awards, which I was really happy about. And that really kind of set the stage for the cross-genre nature of all of my fiction. All of my fiction is historical fantasy with romantic elements, either a little bit more in the foreground or a little bit more in the background. And then the level of horror varies from series to series, but there's horror in there too, because they're also all paranormal and they're dealing with usually really big paranormal stakes that are happening. So it's hard to pin down my work because I do really love so many different genres, and I just try to squeeze as many genre elements as I can into one. And thankfully,
that's what makes it so good. Honestly,
thank you. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and thankfully, publishers let me keep doing it. And all of my characters and all of my books are set in the same universe. So all of my fiction has crossover characters. So when people ask where to start, it's like, as long as you start with book 1 in any of the given series, you can start with book 1. It doesn't matter where you start, which book 1, just start with book 1 and then go. They're each, usually they're trilogies or quartets of books, and they're set at different points in time in history. So wherever that is, you'll find the crossover characters at that point in their histories. And it's been kind of fun little visitations from friends.
So it's reader friendly as well because of the way you integrated the story style.
I try. And because all of these were published by different publishers, they had to stand on their own, because I couldn't rely on the readership knowing this before, because sometimes folks won't realize that this was part of another series or whatever. So I tried to make sure that I really did create each series as a standalone series. Now, within the series, I wouldn't recommend starting with book 3 of any of my books, because you do want books 1 and 2 of that particular series. But I have it pretty well laid out, at least I hope, on my website about what belongs to what series.
I feel like the website was laid out pretty well.
Thank you. I'm hoping. And I'm always, I'm on just about every social media. And if you do have questions about anything, I promise I do check them all. I just don't check them all every day.
That's fair.
I promise you can leave a question and I will eventually see it. I swear.
I was stressing about that, but
Instagram has been the one that I've been the most reliable on these days. It's been Instagram. So my full name, you'll find me on Instagram, and that's what I've been, because that's the one I know I can reliably check. I just can't keep up with everything. It's hard to keep up.
Well, I'm going to show your YouTube, because I did share this out on YouTube.
Good. Yay. Thanks. Yes. The YouTube too. I do love checking it on YouTube. I need to do more videos.
I know that Nate's going to mention this, so he's going to smack me, but this is your tour work.
I'm not going to smack you. You're the co-host. You can tell
I
me.
know, but I'm very curious about that because we were kind of before the show. That's when it gets interesting, everybody, if you don't know it. The most interesting, I guess. You were talking about how you had to have a license to do that. I'd love to know more about that.
That's a very fascinating process for me.
Yes.
It is. So in New York City, you have to get a tour guide license to be able to lead groups of people around. And you will, I have never personally been stopped, but I know people who have been stopped by Department of Consumer Affairs officials, or sometimes if a police officer is bored and they see someone who isn't wearing a physical license, they'll ask to see it. And so it's not highly regulated, but it's just a way. I agree with the reasoning for it, because I love New Yorkers, but New Yorkers will just bullshit you. If you don't like kind of have a little bit of a threshold for no, you really do need to be tested on whether you know that's the Empire State Building versus the Chrysler Building. So there's an extensive test. It's like a 380 question test about the history of New York and about some traffic laws in New York, because a lot of times the tour guides are also bus tour guides. That's where I started. Before I started working with Burros of the Dead, a walking tour company, I actually worked on the red double-decker buses in the city. And it was a brutal job, but it gave me a good lay of the land about the city, for sure. And gave me a lot of good general history. And then I could get a lot more specific with Burros of the Dead. Then I could get into spooky stuff. But the licensing process is you have to take this very long multiple choice test, and you have to get above, you have to get like a B in order to pass. It is sort of a pass fail, but it was a high threshold for a pass fail for it.
Yes.
And I'm glad about it, because it's like, it just forces you to know the things that you are saying to people. And I think that's a good thing. I think everyone should be tested about something that you're supposed to be an expert about.
It is a great thing, because let me tell you, like when I welcome new members onto my team as far as Newport Paranormal Society, typically they get a handbook, they get a field and evidence guide, and they get an equipment guide, right? Every piece of equipment that I own, and when I add stuff to it, I actually have to go through and rewrite my whole guides, actually, because I lost my original copies. They got deleted somewhere. But so I got to go through and rewrite all this stuff. But I give them the handbook, the field and evidence guide, and the equipment guide, and then I let them have it for 2 or 3 months. And then I give them an examination. They have to pass with an 87% or above.
See? Yeah.
And if they don't, I give them one more chance, because that tells me you didn't read the material that I gave you.
Right.
Or maybe you just don't test well. If you fail it the second time, I'll give it to you verbally to see if maybe you just don't test well.
Right.
If you fail it the third time, then I can't consider you because you didn't pay attention to the materials that I gave you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think everything that is about specificity, and all of these things are about specificity. I do think you have to have something that is a bar for, do you really want this? Are you serious about this?
Correct. And not just that, but if I'm at a location, right, and it's because I do a lot of personal residence whenever I do investigations, typically personal residences.
Right.
So if I'm walking off somewhere and there's a team member standing there, I want that team member to be able to answer the question in the way that I would answer it in my absence. It builds credibility.
Right. And that's the thing I think too. And I know that we all know this, dealing with the paranormal. Trust and credibility is a very difficult thing. And so you have to try to earn it in something that we still can't prove. Right.
And here's the thing, in this field, as far as the paranormal goes, not writing, because you've already approved your credentials in writing, okay? But the paranormal wise, though, I mean, your credibility and your word and what people think about you is all you have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am a believer, but at the same time, I try to be a skeptic first, because I also know how powerful my imagination is.
That's fair. And so I want to ask you, so you started off writing paranormal romance or fantasy romance, Sorry.
It's
conversations going.
It's paranormal too, though, because they shelved it in fantasy because they didn't have a separate paranormal section at that point, but it's all of my characters are involved with ghosts. So It's also paranormal. So that is not
fall into that category.
It's all in there.
So let me ask, how does one go from writing fantasy romance to writing something like this? Because this
Ooh.
book, A Haunted History of Invisible Women, True Stories of America's Ghosts. I was going to say True Ghost Stories of America. That's why I looked. But how does one go from writing that style to writing in this style? And I absolutely love the fact that you wrote a book specifically about women.
Yeah, so it was this wonderful confluence of forces. It happened quite organically. So I was giving a tour for Burrows of the Dead, which is the tour company founded by my co-author, Andrea Janes. I was
Okay.
her first hire outside of herself, running the company by herself. And she realized, I want to give more tours. I need to bring someone on. Her and I had just done a ghost story reading at a venue in New York City. And I went up to her afterwards. I said, I really like what your company is doing. I really like your approach to ghost tours. You're doing it very respectfully, focusing on history first. And the paranormal is in there, but not at the cost of the history and not at the cost of the truth. And I really respected that. And I said, I do have my tour guide's license if you ever need anybody else. And she was like, well, I probably should hire somebody.
We have a special guest that's going to pop in. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say happy birthday online. She's going to
Yes, happy birthday.
happy
love that.
birthday, girl.
Yay.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna have to reboot again. I didn't want to miss your conversation because I don't get to see you often, but my phone keeps freezing.
Oh,
Well,
well,
hi,
let's
friend.
try it. Yeah, let's try it until
Okay.
it flips out. And then
Yeah.
if you go, we'll go. But happy birthday, honey.
Thank you.
Yay.
You've got the link. If you need to boot out, come back in. We got
Do
you.
your thing. I got
It
you.
seems to have fixed itself. It's those gremlins.
Data always.
It's
always.
gremlins. It's gremlins.
It is.
Definitely. So let me tell you, like when you go down to it and you have to pass that many questions of a test, like I'd rather go take the ACT again.
Oof. That's rough.
I don't because thankfully there was no math on that history test.
Oh,
So
that's fair. That's fair.
That's where I'm like, no, give me the tour guide test all over again because I don't want to go back.
No,
to it.
actually, you know what? That's fair because I'm a history buff, so I
Yeah.
love history. So that ACT. I'm never moving to New York anyway. I'm never going to take the test.
He's
But
not going to
still,
be a tour guide.
I'm just sitting here mulling over my head. Is it really worth it? But for you, it is worth it because of your line of work.
Absolutely.
So you got your theatrical start, according to my notes. If I'm correct, please. If I'm incorrect, please tell me. At the Cincinnati Shakespeare Company.
Mhm. Yep,
So-
right. As soon as I got out of college, I had a job waiting for me at the Cincinnati Shakespeare Company. It was really fun.
So what was your first work there?
I toured educational shows. So I was part of the very first young company that they created. They created an intern company for the group, and I was one of the first ones to be hired onto that. And we toured Midsummer Night's Dream, and we toured Julius Caesar, and then we were involved in main stage productions at the company downtown in Cincinnati as well. And so it was an intense, really intense. But it gave me such a love of Shakespeare, and it was a great background in just sort of like a lot of the stories that are underpinning our Western thought. Is a lot of it is tropes that are in Shakespeare. So it was a great basis as a writer, and I also liked the history of who Shakespeare was, and so we also were. We would sometimes give talks about who Shakespeare was in the context of his time. So it was also this kind of fun thing where I was doing a little bit of what I'm doing now, which is sort of, yes, there's performance, and sometimes it's something theatrical, or sometimes I'm writing fiction, or in the case of being hired on to write nonfiction, then I get a chance to sort of say, okay, here's the basis for a lot of things that then become fiction. And so I was giving a tour for Burrows of the Dead when an editor who was familiar with my fiction, when she came on my tour, she actually was like, I love your fiction. However, I love your passion for telling these stories. What do you think about doing a nonfiction book about ghosts? And I was like, sure, let me bring my boss in on this, because this is her company, and she's just now doing a really cool angle. She was the first person that at least as far as we know, she was the very first ghost tour to talk just about women's ghost stories on a particular tour that she was offering. So she created a version of our Greenwich Village tour that just focused on the women ghosts. And that was a very different narrative to say, all right, these are just stories of women. And it's asking the question, how do we talk about women alive and dead? What are the tropes? What are the stereotypes? So she had just started giving this women's only, in terms of the ghost stories were women only. And those narratives right around the time I was approached to do a nonfiction. So we put our heads together and said, actually, that's a great idea. We looked to see if anyone had done a book just about women's ghost stories. And yes, there were collections of women writers who had written ghost stories, but not just women ghosts. So this gave us a huge and groundbreaking thing to do with A Haunted History of Invisible Women, and be the first of its kind book to just talk about women's ghost stories and to examine these things from a sociological point of view. So it's one part real history, it's one part real ghosts, and it's another part sociological discussion of women's history and how some stereotypes about women, or ways in which women really broke from tradition or stereotypes and became these really kind of iconic figures through their ghost lore. We examine all of that and really try to lift up the whole range of women's experience, because it's never just one thing. Yeah, there's been a lot of difficult things that have happened for women through history, but there's also been a lot of triumphs too. So we try to focus on all of it.
I like it. Speaking of invisible women, Morgan just disappeared. I don't know where she went. Maybe she had to reload.
She's making our point for us that,
There you go. Well, yeah, she's having issues, but I will just say, as Nathaniel knows, any show that we have on this network, we seem to have gremlins, and
we do. We do.
Yeah.
So
Every time.
Hopefully she gets it figured out. She's able to pop back in, because I know she wanted to come on the show and she wanted to say hi, considering the fact that she was the one who got me.
I know, and I love
the show
her.
booked.
I love her. I love
do
her
too.
very much.
And it's her birthday. That's why I was bouncing in my seat almost trying to get her on.
I didn't know it was her birthday. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Don't worry. I had it in my calendar, and I had a reminder to go off at 8 o'clock this morning, and it never went off. So that
Nathaniel.
happened. Look,
Okay, why didn't you tell me? I would have reminded you. Oh my goodness.
How can I tell you to remind me if my calendar didn't remind me to remind you to remind me?
You see, we have fun. We just do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I want to touch on this a little bit more.
Oh yes, please.
So do you have a favorite chapter?
Mm-hmm.
In A Haunted History of Invisible Women, it probably won't surprise you that one of my favorite chapters is my longest chapter, which is my chapter about Sarah Winchester and the Winchester Mystery House.
Oh, it's such an interesting story.
And I think the reason why I love that so much is I actually really felt a kinship with Sarah Winchester. I felt like she was somebody who didn't want to play by the rules. She was actually quite shy, which I actually, yes, I'm a performer.
There she is.
Sorry for interrupting again.
Back.
I had my teenager on standby in case I had more issues.
You're back. I'm so
Bella.
glad to see you're back. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yay.
So Sarah Winchester was such an interesting woman, because she was shy to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
From my knowledge, she was shy to begin with, and then once her husband died, which most people probably know, he was the founder of the Winchester Arms Company, and then she went to see a psychic medium who told her that the ghosts were going to come and haunt her from the rifles that her husband killed. Is that correct?
That's the mythology. None of it is true.
I want the facts.
Yes.
None of that is true. All of that was invented because people didn't understand why she was doing what she was doing. She moved out to California after her husband passed. Now, not only did her husband pass, but her baby had died. But prior to this, so she had dealt with the loss of her mother, of her father-in-law, her baby girl, who starved to death from a horrible condition that now is treatable, but wasn't in the 19th century. And then her beloved husband, and they were very close. She lost all of them back to back. And so she moved from Connecticut, where she was born, out to California to kind of start over. And she inherited, because of the Winchester Arms Company, She inherited $8 million in 1888 money.
Oh, wow.
So you
Yeah,
can
with-
do the math on
do
that.
the
That's
math.
a ton. She's one of the richest women in the world overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And she owns over 50%. She's owns a majority of shares in the stock of the company too. So she's also making money on the money she's made. But she had no interest in being like a belle of the ball or high society or any of that. Again, she was this a shy woman who was now profoundly grieving. And so she went to California and she bought a little farmhouse. And one of the things that her and William had loved to do was to work on construction projects together. And she herself was a bit of an amateur architect. So she decided she was going to use her money to build onto the house. And she just kind of kept building because she really liked creating designs. And she really liked paying woodworkers because her father had been a carpenter and she loved woodworking and she loved hiring craftspeople to do beautiful things. And she knew she could pay them well and she wanted to employ them at 3 times the rate of anyone else hiring anybody.
Yes, I did know that. Yes.
Very, very generous. So here she is basically trying to use her house like a bit of a dollhouse and just basically make her creations, but just make it life size. But because that was weird and that is admittedly eccentric because because she wasn't trained and she couldn't have been, even if she wanted to be. They didn't let women be architects at that point. And so she was building onto things and onto things and onto things, a bit like for sport in a way, but that just people didn't understand it. They wanted to create a narrative about it. So even during her lifetime, the myth that she was crazy and the myth that she was building to escape the horrors of those killed by the Winchester rifle, which she never said one way or another that she never ever said she had guilt about a gun any more than anyone else had guilt about a gun. So it was like it was sort of like people who were uncomfortable with America's obsession with guns, which has been a thing for our entire country's history, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like people were putting their anxiety about gun violence onto this woman. Even though she never said one way or another about it. She never wrote down, or as far as we know, she left very little notes. She didn't have a diary, that at least not that anybody found. So we don't really know what she thought about things, but we know that people wanted access to her money and they were mad that she was not throwing parties and inviting them. And so because she was a bit of a recluse, people just made up stories about her because the wealthy people of California wanted access to her money. They wanted her to open doors with her money and she just didn't. So because she didn't play by the rules and she was always dressed in black and she was always walking around in a veil, that made people tell stories about her. And so I got really invested in that narrative about saying like, hey, okay, all right, sure, she was quirky, but all the rest of this stuff is being put onto her when she never, as far as her family was concerned, never held seances in that house. The year after she died, the house was bought. It was actually going to be torn down. So if you can imagine that, it was an assessor said, this is not of any value. We don't know what to do with it. It's this big, it's a 166 room mansion. We don't know what to do. And half of it doesn't even connect. So it was assessed of no value and they're going to tear it down. But then John Brown of an amusement park company said, well, there's a mystery house out at one of my amusement parks and it's really popular. And here's a ready-made mystery house with a ready-made ghost story all involved. And so the Winchester Amusement Company opened in that house a year after Sarah's passing and invented the stories of all of the hauntings and all of the seances and all of the stuff. And the house has to reconcile that this was the fabricated narrative to get people interested in coming to visit the house. But here's the truth of things. And here's the question mark. There's a lot about it we don't know. There's a lot about Sarah's choices we'll never know. So I try in my chapter, and that's the one I just got the most obsessed with. So thank you for letting me go on a tangent.
Oh, you're good. You're good. This fascinates me because now I'm learning something. I
love her. And I really feel for her about her narrative getting taken away from her when she just didn't want to have to be in the public eye. And I think that and she was also extremely generous. So here's the thing. She was giving millions of dollars away in charity, most of which we'll never actually know because she was giving a lot of it away anonymously. One of the things she did do upon her passing was to create the William Wirt Winchester Tuberculosis Hospital. That was what her husband died from. In his name, she created that after her passing. And this was in 1932, I think. Forgive me, I'm blanking on the exact year that she passed. But she created the William Wirt Winchester Tuberculosis Hospital, which is now still a part of Yale Medical. And she endowed $2.2 million for that back in the it was the 1920s. Sorry, it's 1920s. So that's a lot of money. And that's the only thing we really know that was a big donation that she put her name on. All the rest of the stuff she was giving to children's charities and children's hospitals constantly. Millions of dollars she was giving away privately, anonymously. So she was also this extremely generous person who, she didn't let wealthy people have parties in her house, but she did let the local school children come and play in the garden because she loves looking out.
And I respect that.
Yeah.
Because when I think of people who have a lot of money and throw lavish parties, for me, I think of the Madame Cherie Castle over there in the Madame Cherie Forest here in New Hampshire.
Right.
Through lavish parties, a lot of people thought she was a madam, which is false. She was not a madam.
Right.
But a lot of people think that she was just because of the types of parties that she threw. And she basically threw so many parties, she made herself broke, trying to keep up with the time.
Right. Right. She was kind of a lesson to be learned in that. But she really did fall victim to what people expected of society women at that time.
Exactly. And yes, the Winchester Mystery Mansion, albeit fascinating, because I think it's fascinating that most of the staircases have 13 stairs. Most of the window panes have 13 panes of glass. Her obsession with the number 13 was a little bit weird. But knowing the history that you just bestowed upon me, is it weird now? No, not really.
No.
Well, and also when the Winchester Amusement Company opened after her death, they added some things to make it 13.
Oh,
they put extra things in, they put extra candles in the chandelier to make it 13. If you look at it, there's one that doesn't quite match up with the spacing of everything else. So some of that was added to the house to be part of the narrative.
Interesting.
So I have a question. I may have missed it. You said there's no like proven history that seances were done there?
No proven history. The room that they think was the seance room, the room that was said to be the seance room was actually a gardener's bedroom.
That takes away from my fun theory, because I was curious if maybe she had private seances with her husband and they were trying to do the architecture to one up each other. Like she would have an idea, try to do a seance, because who's to say she wasn't a little witchy or had gifts of her own?
And I think you're onto something there, because I think she was not necessarily ever a spiritualist, but I absolutely think she was having a constant conversation with William. That I absolutely do believe, but I don't think it was formalized in the way that we would think of a formalized seance. I think everything she did, and you can see even in the safe that was opened that just had, loving locks of his hair and her baby's hair. And it was just, she never stopped loving him. She was just, they were obsessed with each other in the best way. And it was really healthy, loving, mutual respect relationship. And really, truly the love of her life. And I think that she was recalling their favorite time together when they were helping build her family-in-law's place. And that was like a really bright time in their lives. And I think she was still just probably asking his opinion. And even if she wasn't necessarily holding a seance, when you talk to a lost loved one and you know what they'd say, that's not necessarily a seance. You're just having a conversation with your departed. And I definitely think that was in play and driving a lot of what she did. I agree entirely.
I'm curious, do you know if there's like sketches or any writings that Sarah herself personally did in regard to construction of the house?
I think that the house has a few like little sketches here or there, but she didn't really, it's interesting that she didn't archive stuff. She was not an archivist. The house historian, Jen Boehm, who I interviewed for the book, she was trying to piece a lot of stuff together that they didn't have a lot of records for. And a lot of things weren't, because she wasn't trained and there wasn't any kind of like desire to archive her work as an artist. When the house was not named in her will at all, the house wasn't mentioned in her will. All that was mentioned was that all the interior items be auctioned off by her niece, Daisy Merriman. Nobody knew what to do with anything. So all the stuff that's in that house is stuff that the Winchester company bought to try to restore it to what it might have looked like. And it's possible, it's thought that some of the pieces that had been in there actually ended up coming back to the house. But
who knows?
It's very odd that she didn't, like, she is adding to her own mystery. So some of the narrative being like out of her control is also of her own doing, because she just didn't leave records.
Right,
Yeah.
which that also discredits another narrative that I heard, that she would, which is not necessarily discrediting it, okay? But people would say that she sat down and drew blueprints every morning for whatever room she wanted added. Maybe she sketched it out on a napkin somewhere and said, "Hey, I kind of would like this here." I mean,
Yeah,
Cool.
I think it was a little less formal. Like, I don't think she was drafting up actual full blueprints for things. I think it was just, and some of the things that don't make sense about the house, like the door that goes to nowhere, that's because there was an earthquake. That's because there was an earthquake and that part of the house fell down and she just didn't rebuild it.
Right.
And
The whole
there
house kind of shifted too, right?
Yeah.
And there's also a staircase that goes to nowhere. It leads right up to a ceiling.
Yep. Yeah, because half of the house fell down and it was no longer safe. And rather than rebuild and spend millions of dollars to rebuild, she just decided to focus on other properties. So this was not the only house she had.
Interesting. So moving on from that, because we spent a good amount of time on that. But
Yeah, I was going to say, please don't. You can tell.
We can talk about it all night.
Yeah, we'd be here till midnight, I guess.
You just taught me a lot, and I love it, because I love learning new things, especially if it's lore that I've taken as factual, to find out that it's not factual, because debunking is my thing. So when I hear truthful history, I enjoy it and I love it. So you are a member of the International Thriller Writers and the Dramatists Guild. So what exactly is that?
International Thriller Writers is an organization that that anyone who has published a book that could fit into a thriller category, and they include things that have mystery elements and thriller elements. Again, because I'm so cross genre, I have high stakes action adventure aspects in a lot of my books. And so I qualified for membership in the International Thriller Writers. And the Dramatists Guild, you have to have had a play published in a major publication. And my first thing that I ever got published, because I'd come from theater, so I had some theater connections, and I queried a bunch of different play anthologies, and I got one of my plays into a best of the year anthology. So that meant I had the credits to be able to join the Dramatists Guild. So it's one of those things where I've tried to make sure I'm staying connected in all of the different professional organizations to which I have any kind of tie in my industries, because the arts are something where you do have to stay connected, and we all have to kind of help each other out as we go, because the arts are kind of always a little bit unstable and on shifting sand. And so I found that by being a member of these different organizations, I can usually find out about different opportunities. And it's been one of the things that's kind of kept me going when I'm not sure what to do next. And then somebody will have an idea somewhere, or I'll follow an open call for something somewhere. And it's been a love. All of the organizations I belong to have been really valuable in kind of like helping me stay updated with a constantly changing set of industries, whether it's theater or whether it's publishing.
Interesting. So can I ask you, because you're a member of the SAG-AFTRA, so if the Screen Actors Guild goes on strike, does that mean you have to? Because I don't understand the whole dynamics of this. It
just means that I can't be doing film and television at that point, but that hasn't affected me lately, because a lot of the SAG-AFTRA contracts that I've been doing lately have been audiobook narration, and the audiobook narrators were not on strike. It was the folks who were actually on big Hollywood sets. My smaller contract for a audiobook narration at the time of that last strike, it was under a different contract negotiation. So I thankfully did not have to have a work stoppage for that particular point. And usually I've been on book deadlines. And so I haven't really actually been on set at the timing any of the strikes have happened. It's been when I've been shifting and when I've been my authorial self and I've had my author hat on. So the timing of that the strikes have not affected me directly, but I would absolutely be mindful of that if that were happening.
Okay, no, that was a curiosity, because I've never worked for a unionized company before, which I know that is. So I kind of assumed that's what the case would be, but I wasn't sure how that would affect like outside realms, like the voice acting or voice reading and stuff like that. Which, for the record, if anyone out there ever wants an audio book from someone that sounds like a drunk redneck with a lisp, I got you. But no, I was really curious about that, just because I see strikes all the time. And I'm like, well, how are new movies getting produced? Like, what's the workaround? What's the back, like how do you find that back door to still be able to make money? And what you just kind of explained that.
Yeah, I think most performers and most writers, we all have 5 different freelance jobs. One of the reasons why I do as many things as I do is because each one of these things is kind of a niche talent. And so all together, it mostly makes a living. And I've been a freelancer for so long that I don't know how not to be at this point. But I do have to spin a whole lot of plates. Because freelancing has been increasingly difficult. But at the same time, it does give me the freedom to follow the things that I want to be doing and to follow my passions. So
I like it. So before I get to my hard-hitting question of the night, which we discussed earlier, Gwen, do you have any final questions?
I have too many.
You get one.
I have too many. Well, I'm just going to start like this. When I met you in Salem, I actually think I met you in Connecticut first, but I'll be real with you.
Yeah.
It was very warm that day. And
yes, in Ansonia.
Yeah,
it was brutally hot.
It was, but
it was very warm, brutally hot.
Oh yeah, that's the truth. It was. I will say the words, but I know you try to keep it PG, but it's a name for when you sweat all over in the South. Yeah. Okay. So
you have to teach me that one later.
I will. But yeah, I love the way you dress and everything. And I am obsessed with Wednesday Addams and the way you dress. But when I met you, I got to say, I enjoyed it. Your books are amazing. I have got to sit down and read more. I do. Morgan, that's your job. You got to make me read more.
Look, it ain't going to help her any, but I mean, she can read all she wants.
I love her stories. I love the 1800s for some reason.
Making fun of you.
Yeah, but I will tell you this, and I don't know if Morgan's picked up on this, but this is why I didn't say anything. In the private chat, I wrote, but I never sent it. I said, in a past life, I see you designing jewelry in the 1800s and clothing, and that's why you like certain things. But Morgan, did you pick up any of that? Just curious.
Oh, wait, was that not like a comment that was pinned earlier? Because I think I saw that written somewhere.
No, Blaine put that up there, but I had already typed what but I never sent it in our private chat. I'm just curious, did you pick up on any of that too?
Well, I didn't try to tap into her energy, but I've read for her before. The first time I met her, one of her lovely relatives came through. Honestly, I was starting to tap into Sarah Winchester because I think there's more to the writing. It feels very much like there was some form of automatic writing, whether she was aware or not, with the designs of the home.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not going to try to tap into anybody, especially on a live.
I was not until she told me her last name. She said it, and I realized that my biological father, his family, has the same last name, and I had cold chills, and I kept seeing this.
And it's a very specific name. It's it's one of the least common German names that exists.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
so
that's
I will be looking at it. But yes, all I really want to say is thank you so much for coming on. Please come back.
I am definitely going to have her back on the show because I didn't even get to half of my questions.
I'm sorry. I took so much time with Sarah Winchester.
No, we love it.
No.
Morgan, I think you're right that she was like, she wouldn't have called herself a spiritualist like trying to be someone who would have tried to be a fraud about it. I think she very privately had some, I think she was sensitive. I absolutely believe she was sensitive. But I think it was very personal and it was very tied to her grief.
Yeah. So the physical feeling right now, it's like tightness in the throat and the chest. Like, nope, you're saying too much. Nope, this is just for me.
Yep.
But it's a thing. I think in private, honestly, if you wanted to try to tap in with her more, that would actually be a neat experiment. And Nate, you could also probably try to help with the research as well. I think that would be very interesting, actually, because I think she would be more comfortable behind closed doors, not in front of a screen.
I would definitely help with the research, but I can tell you right now, I learned something from the woman specifically below me that I had no idea about. So,
yeah,
I will try my best. So now with time winding down, because I still have my typical 3 questions, so we might run about 5 minutes over, guys.
Oh,
I'm
that's fine.
sorry.
You can take whatever time. I know you guys have another show, so I'm fine. You can take as long as you have. I don't have an out.
Okay.
Take as long as you want. Take as long as you want.
So more of a somewhat serious question, considering this is the last episode of Women Involved in the Paranormal celebrating Women's History Month. And I love the fact that you came on. I love the fact that this was the last conversation of the month, because this has been awesome. So I wanted to ask you, being a woman in the field that you are, as far as being an author, being an actress, and also traveling around to paranormal conventions and such, and doing public speaking, do you feel as though at points in time it is more difficult for a woman to get a gig as far as headlining or a headlining role, or being accepted as far as the whole field goes overall? Or do you think it's more of a male dominated field?
I think when you start to look at the paranormal investigation and the paranormal television shows, all of that has been very male dominated. But when you look at the paranormal writers, when you look at things like who's writing nonfiction and who's doing like academic stuff, you're going to find a lot more women. But even in academia, sometimes there's been, glass ceilings there too. I think it really depends. And I feel very lucky and very blessed that I've met a lot of really great guys like yourself at a lot of these conventions that really just offer invitations. I mean, Charles and both Charles and Thomas doing all of the stuff in both for Salem Paracon and in Connecticut, they've always been welcoming. I was on a panel with Charles years back, and he's just like, "Hey, come to my convention and give a talk." And then Sam Beltrusis, because he saw me there, has invited me to other things. So I feel like, I don't know, I felt very welcomed, and I've not felt a pushback. But I also really love public speaking. So I think for women, one of the things I would advise for women in the field is, if you want to be involved and if you want to get up and give a talk, then just go ahead and be bold about it and talk to organizers and say, "I would love to give a talk," and just be your own advocate. That's one of the things that I feel I feel very inspired by whatever it is that I didn't get done in the 19th century is pushing me to make sure I do it this century for myself now. And some of that means I have to be my own self-advocate.
I like it. That is great advice too. For any woman out there watching, if you feel that need, step up. If you don't say something, people don't know anything.
Right. And that's the thing too, is like, you can't necessarily sit back and wait for an invitation. A lot of times people are just people who are confident, just go ahead and they stake out their own space and they stake out their own claim. So I think that, like, go ahead and have the confidence, go forward and put yourself forward. And then other people will be responsive to that and receptive and be amenable about it. Don't barge in and like demand things necessarily, but build relationships. That's the thing. Build relationships with people who want to see equality happen, and then equality will happen.
Yes. And so we're going to end this podcast off, Leanna, with my typical 3 questions. Oh, and it's going to be a little bit modified because you're known more for your writing than paranormal investigating. So typically everyone has a paranormal bucket list of a place that they would like to travel. If there was a place you could travel to give you inspiration to write a new book, what place would you travel to? All expenses paid.
Oh, I would go back to Prague. I love Prague. It's such a beautiful city, and I just didn't get a chance to spend enough time there. And I want to just really spend time in the old part of the city, and see what comes to me, because I feel like I had a past life experience there when I visited, and it just wasn't enough time. And I was like, oh no, it's so I feel unfinished business about Prague specifically. And then I would really like to have, I'd like to have a little bit more time in Paris. Similar thing. similar sense of unfinished business there. And I'm not, it's stuff that's kind of around the area around the Paris Opera House stuff. I mean, my love of Phantom of the Opera, notwithstanding. So there's places there for certain. And also I feel like being a New Yorker, there's just so much stuff. New York is such a big state. It's not just the city. New York is an enormous state. And I just I really want to like spend much more time going around upstate New York and just exploring, because it's so beautiful. And the history of spiritualism itself is so rooted in upstate New York. And so I really just want to continue to take I've done some of it, but I want to continue to take time and really commune with upstate New York as a real source of big energy.
All right, so excuse me. So considering, I'll give you a bypass here. We're going to go with Prague and Paris, right? Your two places for inspiration to write a new book. You could choose one author from history. They can be alive or dead, to write the book with you. Who are you choosing?
I would choose Anne Bronte, because she never got to live very long. Her books. So Anne Bronte of the Bronte sisters. You've got Emily Bronte, who wrote Wuthering Heights. You have Charlotte Bronte, who wrote Jane Eyre. And then you have Anne Bronte, who wrote Agnes Grey and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And Agnes Grey and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, they're great books, but they just never got the level of acclaim that the other Bronte sisters did. And even then, none of them really got a chance to live long enough to really see just how powerful and important their work was. But I really like to give Anne a little more time and some more credit, because I think her work's really beautiful.
I like it. Okay, so we either go into Prague or Paris. We're bringing Anne Bronte. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so what's the genre of the book?
Oh, it's going to be a Gothic novel.
Of course.
There's no doubt about it, because all of them wrote Gothic novels, and they're like my foremothers. What in my literary DNA, what is not Edgar Allan Poe is a Bronte. And I very much have channeled that. My next fiction that I have coming out early 2027. It's called Ravenfield Hall, and it's set on the southern coast of Maine, and it is very, very inspired by Bronte sister themes. And I mentioned, because it's set in the late 1800s, set after the Bronte sisters novels would have been out. My heroine is very aware of the Bronte sisters at that point, and so does mention and name checks them in the book. So I'm very metatextual about all of that, because I want it to be very, very clear about what my inspirations are.
I like it. I like it. Those are absolutely great answers. And I love it when I have a guest that I have to kind of modify my typical 3 questions for. It's fun. And to be honest with you, I didn't write any of that down. I was just off the top of my head.
Amazing.
So, I absolutely love your answers. And Leanna, thank you so much for joining us on the show for this hour. Morgan, thank you so much for coming in.
Happy birthday, Morgan.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me crash. It was fun getting to talk to you again.
Oh my gosh, I always want an excuse to talk to you, so I'm so excited about this.
If you guys wouldn't mind, hang around in the background. But we got one more ad to run. After we close out the show, you guys can sit back there, conversate, catch up, and we will be there with you in a minute.
Okay, here we go.
Amazing.
All right.
Gwen,
That's
that
a
was
3-hour,
great.
4-hour show there. We could do that.
That was absolutely, in my opinion, the best way to end out the women involved in the paranormal for Women's History Month episodes.
Yes. And thank you for doing that.
No, thank me for what?
For doing the women and the paranormal. I know you invited us too, and that was very cool. Very cool.
I enjoy doing it, and I'll definitely be doing it again next year.
Nice.
So I think it was very, very fun. The conversation itself, I learned a few things, which is not often that I do, because I typically know everything because I'm a man. But no, like the stuff that she taught me about Sarah Winchester, and how a lot of the things that people think they know is actually not facts.
That's interesting.
That is fascinating to me. But that was a great show. My guest was Leanna Renee Hieber, or Hieber. That last name's going to get me. It's going to kill me. But,
it's still giving me cold chills. Oof.
Yeah, it's getting to me. But guys, that was the Paranormal Unveiled podcast. Do not forget to stay tuned for the rest of Wicked Wednesdays. We have Jeremy Cotter on Twisted Tales coming up, and his guest is where did I put it? It's here somewhere. Hang on, guys, I'm reading my notes. I'm trying to read.
Ellen.
McNeil.
There you go.
Ellen McNeil from Spirits of New England.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Gwen. You helped me out with that. You kind of got me out because I just wrote McNeil. I forgot to put the Ellen typo. But
I'm excited
guys,
for her. So yes.
it was an absolutely amazing show, and Jeremy's going to have a great show as well. So please tune in at 9:30 p.m. EST for Twisted Tales to finish off Wicked Wednesday. And guys, I will see you all next week with my guest, Frank Fletcher, who is not a paranormal investigator. He's a musician with a special guest host. My daughter, Danny, will be joining us. So
Love
it's
it.
going to be absolutely awesome. And I will see you guys at the Paranormal Unveiled. Same spooky time, same spooky channel. I'll see y'all next week.